Okay, hola Tammy. Thanks so much for chatting with
Hey,
me today.
hi. Thank you for having me.
So you have been quite busy with everything, I think, internally,
hmm
Gutenberg related, externally with the community. So props there. Yeah, I'm sure it's been fun and exciting,
Yeah,
everything that's going on.
yeah. It's really fun and exciting in community. Doing design in community is something that really excites me. So it's been really great, and being able to do Gutenberg has been really exciting. Like the new technologies and being able to design with that.
Good, because if it didn't, I'm sure it would be exhausting. And thank you for your time again, just to chat with me for a few minutes here. So, the idea is we're doing this free
hmm
JavaScript for WordPress conference, and a lot of it is going to be technical and not just like beginner technical, like for real, interesting, deep talks.
Yeah,
But at the same time, my personal feeling and organizing it is that we can't go all day and just be technical and not talk about the design because the
yeah,
UX, the UI, the accessibility, the pleasability, just so many different things about it.
yeah,
And I know some folks that, I'm not a designer, but I don't really believe that. And we can all think in ways of interaction and all these things that are related to code or not. So
yeah,
you were a go-to person for me because of your
Mhm.
experience. And I think kind of a passion and understanding in this area. So
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of throw it open. You have a 50-minute talk that we can
Mm.
do anything that you think is exciting and important. And so I'll kind of turn it over to you to begin the what
Yeah.
is intriguing, what's not, what's current for you, that sort of thing.
So, because my background is user experience, I think for me, a lot of the technologies and something good to talk about would be the technologies are enabling a lot of the experience which we'd either worked around or there was like a point we could get them. So, I think that's super interesting to talk about.
Okay.
Um, one of them, and this came around with talking about like JavaScript themes and REST API a couple of years ago. But one of the bits that initially made me kind of perk my ears up about kind of JavaScript and different kind of things about that, beyond like it does a bit of an animation with like jQuery, right? jQuery for designers is my go-to for a while. And beyond that was being able to have an experience that you then go, say, in a tunnel on the underground, and then it still works, and then you kind of pick it up, and
Mhm.
those kind of experience gains and performance. I recently watched the React, like I'm not sure if it was a keynote, but it was at Iceland JavaScript, and some of it was super technical,
Yeah.
but the user experience parts of it, all of those kind of bits are super exciting to me, and interpreting them as a designer, it's a challenge because I'm learning JavaScript at the same time. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, whoa. But it's really, really interesting to be able to work out how I have all these things that are possible. And I think that developers and designers are getting closer, and the
Yes,
bridge
I
is
agree.
experience. I
Uh,
always argue that you.
oh, can we include that line in the talk? Can we get a slide on
Yes.
that? I love that. Okay.
Well, you're taking notes.
I am. Okay. The bridge is the experience. I got it.
Yeah. The reason, so I mean, I am a user experience designer. And then it's a role that I would identify if someone said identify. I mean, in automatic, we have like different titles, but I would say if someone said, what are you? This is what I am. But I've always been more technical. And I think in user experience, we've done it a little bit of an injustice by we've put the word designer underneath, which majority of us are from design, but so many developers can be user experience
Yes,
developers.
I agree.
um, and as things like React are
Interesting.
happening, yeah, things like React are happening, I really think we need to recognize the skills. Just like we're saying to designers, like learn how to code a bit. Not everybody should have to, but raise your technical skills, know your bricks. We're kind of not saying to developers, know your experience. So I'm very keen that developers start looking at different users, looking at different experiences. We can kind of weave that in a little bit, the flip side of designers respecting that developers can say about the experience and that they can learn from these tools, but also that developers need to start thinking outside the headspace and open up a little bit more to
Mhm.
accepting that they don't just have like, I just deliver a bit of code. They're creating something that is some of the things that you do with React and JavaScript are very personal on an interaction level, right? That they
Mhm.
can be like really, really engaging. And to be able, you have to know things like basic psychology and like what happens with animations, what happens with movement, what happens with interactions, where does the eye go, We're seeing this a bit with Gutenberg blocks, right? People are just putting things in different places because we maybe haven't given some of the, people are saying like learn design patterns, but I would also say that we need to enable our developers to have basic principles of human interaction. Do you know the human-computer HCI? I feel that developers engage more with that. Like if you go science, and it's because the brain's right, but in a good way. But my brain works that way. Like I'm from psychology first. So if you kind of try and open up that side, then people are going to get it a bit more. We're not talking about what colors go with each other necessarily, although that can come into it, or what typography or all the kind of flourishes. We're talking about just basic things like when a human loads a page, where does their eye go? When a human clicks this, what happens? How fast should something be? So it's all those kind of things I think are very important.
And they're so tied to the code to the point where if it's just known ahead of time, it doesn't have to be recommunicated and someone on Wix could just do more with it. Yeah, I love it.
And I see it as, I've worked with some, in Gutenberg, I've had the privilege of working with people who identify as developers, but really are close across that bridge. Development, like we weren't even meeting in the middle, right? They were coming to my hometown kind of thing, like, right? Yeah. And that was amazing. And within Automatic we have it, but within the community we actually have that within WordPress. We have some very aware, we have a lot of developers who maybe don't have the funds for someone that identifies as a designer or anything.
Yes, a UX position is usually in a larger budget, right?
Yeah, UX happens in a larger budget. It definitely does. I would argue it probably doesn't need to, but it does. And then when I was freelance, I was called in, like people would say, we have this amount of money that we can hire someone who's used experience. This is it, right? Like that's maybe not the right approach, but it was because they knew they needed the skill, but they knew that it was a maybe more expensive skill, or maybe they needed to go somewhere, you know, it was a difference. But I just think knowing things about psychology, knowing things about what, if you put too many things on a page, humans just, their brain just aborts, it just goes, right? And knowing things like that, knowing about vision, being aware of different users. The one thing I'm trying to get more developers to do is things like empathy challenges. So start experiencing what the users are feeling. Not like empathy in a over-feely, because like, I think that's the problem with the word empathy. We kind of think it's like, it's almost got a negative connotation sometimes, but empathy in the sense of understanding, empathy in the sense of doing something about it. I can empathize with you, but if I don't do anything about it, that's great. I empathized with you, right? But I didn't know. So that kind of thing, just start feeling and experiencing. You can only get a small percentage of what someone is doing, and that's powerful. We had that a little bit with the usability testing of Gutenberg. We got people who were making the product to be exposed to people using the product. And that's actually, sounds so simple, but it's actually so rare. There's a lot of subjects here, so we're kind of going to have to craft down which
so okay, let's craft it a little bit, because I imagine that there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about, and at a high level, let's just imagine for now we're framing this as like a UX with JavaScript type talk, because we want it combined with JavaScript, and that won't be hard because all these interactions are happening with it. Okay. And so a lot of this high level knowledge, which I love, and everything you're talking about, the psychology and the awareness to empathy, the not just design patterns, but kind of the next level of experience. How do you feel about where the overlays are with maybe WordPress specific in a context? Do you want to get into some of your experiences with like Gutenberg or other projects or other things from the community? Yeah,
so I do. I mean, I think in WordPress I think we're less doing it. So Gutenberg's seen less of a divide, which I'm so excited about. And I think that sets the precedent for that kind of bridge we've been talking about. But I think we still do that. We say like, oh, we have the design team to one side, and the design team, they have triage, and we do UX, UI triage. And I would like, there's so many tickets in there that you're just like, well, this is technical. This is not a design problem. That's awesome, but I can't tell you what to do that. So if we had more people who were closer and different towards the developer end, then they would be able to comment in that, right? We still tend to have a lot more pure design. Generally, UI as well. We have a couple recently who've been IA UX side. But saying that one person, it's particularly user experience, saying one person is the same as another user experience designer, so not true. And I think that's one of the nuances with design, like with development. If you're a React developer, that kind of says what you do, right? That's pretty much what you do. Although most people are developers, but I've seen more specialization, like JavaScript developer. You do JavaScript, right? You might specialize in particular areas or different things. But design is such a wide thing, right? Specialization is something that within WordPress, we've not shied away from, but because we have to have volunteers and because a lot of freelancers have to be generalists, we haven't necessarily had that. So we're definitely seeing that start to happen, which I would encourage more of, because the more specialists we get, the better it is. I consider myself pretty special. You do not want me designing an icon, I'm just saying, or a logo. Like I can kind of do it, but it's not my skill set, right? And also I would flip that I want to make sure that we're not saying you have to be a technical designer, because I'm kind of focusing more on developers a little bit with what I'm saying, because I really want to enable developers to just have that sense a bit more, and designers to respect them. Just like we ask them to respect us. If they're doing JavaScript and they're like, this thing in React can make the performance so much better. And performance is like a foundation of experience design, right? If it performs better, it's going to be good. The designer should listen to them. Yeah. Or if they say, like, if you load all these elements, it might look beautiful, but if someone's using their phone on a low bandwidth, they are going to have to go make a cup of tea before this loads. That's something that we should be respectful of and aware and have that kind of conversation. Just like if someone who's accessibility says, and 90% of your user base, if they have a accessibility problem, won't be able to use that now. We should also listen to that.
Yeah. And that is a tie in a little bit. Do you see some of that accessibility kind of weaving in on the edges a little bit?
I do. I think in WordPress, we've got one designer that goes to and fro a little bit who's in accessibility, but generally we leave it up to developers for accessibility. And I think all designers have fallen into that. Something I'm trying to make myself a lot more aware of, along with trying to learn JavaScript, just to be able to speak a bit of the language. Just trying to know, because it's very nuanced, accessibility. The rules are in this case, but not in this case. I mean, there's foundation things that you do, but it's incredibly nuanced. And to balance that with design, it's like it very much reminds me of user experience in that.
Yeah.
And it is actually part of it. I don't think we can separate it from user experience. I think we have in the past. We thought of user experience as structure, all those kind of different things in psychology and engagement, and kind of assume that everybody is able-bodied, right? Or on a same level, which wasn't so good.
So I just want to jump in here because I don't want to take super amount of your time. And I just had the most brilliant idea, which is I just introduce you and you talk for 50 minutes just like this. And the talk's going to be amazing. Like, you don't even have slides. Just get up there and explain it and they're going to understand what's going on. So
we might craft a little bit.
I think we're at a really good place. Let me just kind of review a little bit of what we had. And then I'd love to see if we could get like a working title maybe to push off with. So I wrote down UX, right? Because a little bit in your background, experience. Okay, so gains that we could have in the experience through what we're talking about and how much that is. I want to go back and watch some of that React Conf stuff in Iceland. I've heard it mentioned, and there were a few good things there.
Yeah, I will say a portion of it went over my head, but when
I plan on the same happening.
some of the demos and the performance is something that I feel is a thread this year, right? Accessibility definitely, but accessibility and performance kind of come hand in hand because it has to be performant for everybody, right? Or at least that's kind of the parallel I'm making. I'm not kind of swapping the two out in my mind on priority.
I'm right there with you. I think that's great. We got this great quote here: the bridge between designers and developers is getting closer, and that bridge is experience. I really like that. The psychology of it, explaining interactions. And I don't know if this is an area, like if you have any user testing stuff or just drafts of things that you've gone through that could be some examples of those, that would just be so powerful, I think.
WordCamp US is a good one for us to fall back on because I had a variety of different people are doing that. Love and it. Even processing the tests as well. So
And I feel like the more people see how much work goes on, because they might have seen a booth, but there's a lot of hours behind
Yeah, we
that
can
of
show the
learning.
processing spreadsheet, which is like
Good. Good, good. And along that line, the empathy, the feeling berg, getting into Gutenberg a little bit.
I like Feelingberg.
I like
That's the title.
That's a new one. Yes, Feelingberg. Empathy with interaction design and how to make your sites more performant, right? Like,
So I feel the title wise, the bridge should come into it. So I'm just going to throw some ideas, and none of these are say solid.
okay.
Crossing the design developer bridge. I'm cautious with that because that's definitely still giving separate roles.
Yeah.
Or meeting on the bridge. Kind of things around that. I want to make sure that it's still says what it is, right? But I think because I think it's about trying to get developers. I feel that it's one, showing the things that a designer finds engaging in this new technology, the JavaScript, new things, and within that saying this comes from you developers. This is what you need to do. This is how we meet on the bridge, and this is how we stop being into the separate camps of conversation.
Oh my gosh, I kind of like something along the line like how to meet on the bridge of experience. Or
yes,
yeah,
how to meet on the experience bridge. Oh, that's fluffy, but there we go.
It could be worse. It could be like how to ride the developer unicorn down the experience bridge or something.
Yeah,
you know?
no. How to hold hands and go across. No, it's just
okay. So I think what I'm doing for the most part is I'm definitely going to have, because I want to get up a schedule soon, and so people can see the talks and kind of what's going on. And I'm going to throw up a topic, and it'll rather than title, just kind of be topic, user experience, and JavaScript. Does that sound?
Yeah.
Fit?
I think, I mean, I kind of trust you to wordsmith a title if you want to. Just feel free to ping it to me, because I was going into unicorn land for a while, which kind of went bad. So I'm pretty, as I said to you, I'm pretty flexible about this being a talk just for the conference and a specific one that we're crafting for it, because I think it's important in that case.
Love that.
Well,
thank you.
I think it's good to do that way. So whatever you want to do on that one.
Okay, so I will get kind of the topics and rough schedule up, and then from there we'll, let's see, we'll circle back at a certain point in a couple weeks and see if we have a better idea on specifics. But is this comfortable for you? We've got till June, so we have time.
Yeah. And there's going to be lots of feedback, I think, to fuel into this, the next kind of coming, because I feel that a lot of the JavaScript community, a lot of the developers are feeling confident enough to say things about experience.
Good.
So they're kind of, and now I can kind of add a filter to what I'm looking at and try and kind of fuel into this a bit. So I think if we can maybe look in WordPress, but look to the wider community and say, this is what we need to bring in to WordPress, right? Not have this divide so much, and do that kind of conversations.
And have everybody get there excited. And I love it.
And just recognize that developers have a seat at the table on experience design. I think that's the important thing to kind of say here.
You have a seat on the unicorn on the Rainbow Bridge.
As I hold your hand.
I can imagine the cover slide now. It's good.
It's going to be fantastic.
Okay, so last little bit, timing-wise, we're doing this on kind of a 9 to 5-ish Eastern Standard Time, so you're going to be, 5 hours ahead? So
yes, earlier
in the day, better? Okay,
yeah.
So we're kicking off at 9. If we were at 10, or is even 11 a.m., so that's 4 or 5 o'clock for you?
That'd be fine.
Too late? Okay, good, because I want to get a few introductory things in first.
I tend to try to not do any talky stuff after about 8 o'clock at night, my time.
That is very fair. We could definitely work within that. I think getting you in before noon is perfect, and that should still accommodate. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note. 11 a.m.
It'll also be summer, so it'll be light. And like it won't be going dark at 5 at night.
Dark, just sitting there waiting in the dark and cold. Okay, cool. Well, is there anything else that we have for this, or
no? I think I'm good. And I mean, once we kind of get a title and we get stuff, I'm going to start researching. If you find any resources you're like, wow, I want to throw this, I'm happy for that as well. and I'll just start kind of saving with that in mind, kind of like trying to get some resources and brewing it for a while, and then we can iterate. I'm excited to be iterating it with you and creating a new talk, because I think that's kind of an exciting thing to do. I don't get a chance to do kind of generally it's like Gutenberg at the moment, right? So this isn't a Gutenberg talk, so I'm really happy.
Yes, I love it. It's going to be very collaborative, and I just realized I need somebody to speak on performance from talking with you. So then we'll keep syncing back, and I can feedback what other folks are doing too.
I mean, this is fueled by Gutenberg, this talk, because I feel it's the first project that we've had that kind of meeting. We definitely have, but I think that's a good kind of conversation to have.
Cool.
Cool.
I love it. So we got some examples of it. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for your time. I just got to get a little, can we both do a wave? So I've got a picture of it for sharing out.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For all you're doing. Okay.
Bye.
Ciao, Tammie. Bye.